Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Today I wanted to talk about a very important topic, and that is Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, and why it's so important, and the danger of Shirk, and why it's so dangerous. I wanted to remind myself and you that the only reason Allah has created jinn and mankind is to worship Him, as He said in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created jinn and mankind except for my worship. And also He said that He did not send any messenger to any people except to proclaim that there is no God worthy of worship except Him, and to worship Him. So that is the reason why we are here. That means that we must try our best to learn Tawheed in order to follow it in our thoughts, in our heart, in our beliefs, in our actions, in our sayings, and to learn Shirk. And what is Shirk? And that is everything that opposes Tawheed, and that is idolatry and paganism, and associating partners with Allah, making someone equal to Him, to try and learn it in order to avoid it and to teach ourselves and our wives and children, and if possible other Muslims, in order for us to avoid it. And of course to call other people, non-Muslims as well, to this great message of Islam, which was the message of all prophets and messengers. As Allah said in the Quran, as the Prophet ﷺ said also in the Sunnah, and until now, even in the Torah of Musa alayhi salam, and in the Injil, the Bible of Jesus alayhi salam, that have been corrupted, you'll not be able to find that they called to Shirk, that they came to propagate worshipping others than Allah or equaling someone others than Allah. In fact, you'll find that the very first commandment of Moses from the 10 commandments will be Tawheed, and that is to worship Allah alone, to rely on Him alone, and not to make anyone equal to Him. So I just want to remind myself and you of what is Tawheed, the definition of Tawheed. In the Arabic language, it means to make something or someone one, or to single something or someone out for some action or some statement. In the Sharia, it means to make the religion one for Allah only, by giving Him His rights in terms of 3 aspects of Tawheed, and that means Rububiyyah, which is the lordship of Allah, Uluhiyyah, which is the worship or the godship of Allah, that He alone deserves all the worship, and Asma al-Sifat means the names and attributes of Allah, which means that no one is equal to Allah in any of His names or attributes, and He possesses the best attributes and the best names and the highest attributes. So also we must know that Allah said subhanahu wa ta'ala that He does not forgive Shirk, meaning idolatry and disbelieving in Him, but He forgives other than that to whom He wills. He said this in Surah Nisa in 2 places. So that means that we must be fearful of Shirk, anything that leads to Shirk, and we must try and purify Tawheed from anything that may make it deficient. So the ulama said, تحقيق التوحيد, that means to purify Shirk and to make it strong and to make it pure, involves 2 levels. The first one is an obligatory level, and it means to purify Tawheed from anything, for example, minor Shirk, because major Shirk, which is another type of Shirk or the worst type of Shirk, major Shirk contradicts Tawheed directly. So we cannot say that if you, obviously it follows that in order for us to have Tawheed, we must purify it from major Shirk and minor Shirk and Bid'ah, any innovations in the deen, and all sorts of disobedience to Allah, and to also fulfill the obligatory duties of a Muslim in Islam. And of course this differs in relation to people, and they are of different degrees in relation to this. So this is the obligatory tahqiq al-tawheed. The second one is mustahab, which is recommended. That means that to purify from anything that is makruh, that is disliked by Allah, and to do everything that we can from those things that are mustahab, recommended actions. Let us now turn our attention to Shirk Akbar. What is Shirk Akbar? Shirk Akbar in Islam means to make anything or anyone equal to Allah in any of His rububiyyah, the fact that He is the Lord, He alone gives life and death, He alone created everything, He alone controls everything, He alone gives provision, and so on. So making anyone or anything equal to Allah in rububiyyah, in lordship, or uluhiyyah, to direct any kind of our ibadah, worship, to others than Allah, or to make anyone equal, let alone more or higher or better than Allah in the sense of asma or sifat, or in the aspect of asma or sifat, names and attributes. So for example, to name someone Allah, which is haram, or to equal someone to Him in describing Him. For example, He created the heavens and the earth, which is a lie, and it is haram, it is Shirk Akbar. So this is Shirk Akbar. So Allah said in the Quran about the believers, what they will say, that they were in plain misguidance, and they will say that we used to equate you, addressing their idols or things that they used to worship, with Rabbul Alameen. إِذْ نُسَوِّيكُمْ بِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. We used to equate you to the Lord of all the worlds, meaning the one who created everything, the Lord of creation, the heavens and the earth. And also Allah said in the Quran that those who disbelieve in their Lord, they equate others with Him. Also Allah said, then do not make anyone equal to Allah while you know. So Shirk Akbar is the greatest sin and the biggest disobedience to Allah. And in the Akhirah, in the hereafter, anyone who fell into Shirk Akbar or who committed Shirk Akbar, then Jannah will become prohibited for him, and his abode will be the fire, as Allah said in the Quran. Now let us have a look at the other less dangerous but still extremely dangerous type of shirk, which is Shirk Asghar, minor shirk. The ulama said that anything that leads to Shirk Akbar, major shirk, and it's been mentioned with the word shirk in especially a hadith, and it doesn't quite go to the level of Shirk Akbar. This is Shirk Asghar. Or we have some proofs in the Sharia, in Islam, to show that it doesn't quite reach the level of Shirk Akbar, even though it's been named as shirk. And of course it's a major sin. Many ulama said, and maybe it's a consensus, that this is the worst sin after whatever takes the person out of the fold of Islam, and it can lead to Shirk Akbar as follows from the definition. So therefore, anyone who is on Shirk Asghar and he thinks that this is a small matter, he's on a very dangerous path. So whoever dies upon Shirk Asghar, minor shirk, the scholars have differed on that. Will he be under the Mashi'a of Allah, meaning that if He wills, He will forgive him, and if He wills, He will punish him? Or will he not be? Because Allah said Allah does not forgive any shirk. So some people included minor shirk in that, but the majority say that Shirk Asghar, people who die upon that will be under the will of Allah, and if He wills, He will forgive them. The danger of Shirk Asghar also is manifested by the fact that anyone who falls into Riyā, which is showing off, or only wanting the dunya for his good deeds, will have it rejected by Allah and annulled. As we have a hadith in Sahih Muslim, hadith Qudsi, in which Allah said, the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah said, I am the one who is least in need of any shuraka, or I am the one who is least in need of any partners from shirk. Whoever does an action in which he equals someone with me, then I will leave him and his shirk. And this is narrated by Imam Muslim rahimahullah. Meaning that if any Muslim does anything which must be done only for Allah, for other than Allah, or even maybe for Allah and something else or someone else, Allah doesn't accept it, because He wants only pure Tawheed. That is why Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad is called Surah Al-Ikhlas. Ikhlas means purification of our religion only for Allah. And also the danger of shirk, dear brothers and sisters, is manifested in the fact that many great prophets and messengers like Ibrahim alayhi salam, they used to fear shirk. Like he said, Allah said in Surah Ibrahim, وَجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ, which means keep me and my sons away from worshipping idols. And also the Prophet ﷺ used to warn his ummah even when he was dying from making graves, from making masajid, places of prayer, upon the graves of pious people. And he said on his deathbed, in his last illness, he said, "O Allah, do not make my grave an idol that is worshipped, or a place that will be visited often for the sake of worship other than Allah," meaning. And all his life he spent in calling to Tawheed and warning against shirk. That is why it is amazing when some people who want to call others to Islam, and we have a lot of them now, unfortunately they do not call to Tawheed, they do not warn against shirk, they do not call to Sunnah, except very, very little, and they do not warn against bid'ah almost at all. So what kind of Islam are we calling to if we do not call to the first pillar of Islam? What is the first pillar of Islam? That is to testify that no one deserves the worship except Allah, La ilaha illallah, and to testify that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his slave and messenger. What does it mean? Most people don't even know what La ilaha illallah means. They don't even know what the conditions of La ilaha illallah are mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah, because you can't just say La ilaha illallah and then do whatever you like. So when you, for example, sign an agreement with someone, you have to follow certain conditions, certain rules. You can't do whatever you like and totally ignore this agreement that you have with that individual and then say that, I agreed with you, so therefore you can't tell me anything, even if you do or say or believe things that contradict that agreement. So we have a great agreement between us and Allah when we say La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, even if we don't mention Muhammad Rasulullah all the time, but it's included, the scholars said, it's included. So Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam means that only he deserves to be followed in the deen. So if anyone tells us to do other than the Sunnah or against the Sunnah, we don't have that right to follow that individual. In fact, we are told by Allah in the Quran and by the Prophet ﷺ in the Sunnah to leave that individual. That is part of Tawheed. That is part of the da'wah of the call of Rasulullah ﷺ. So it's very amazing. Some people claim to be from Ahlul Sunnah, from the people of Sunnah, which means from the people of Tawheed and Sunnah, and they almost never talk about Tawheed. And they criticize people who spend their lives, like our great ulama, preaching Tawheed, preaching the Sunnah, and constantly explaining Kitab al-Tawheed, constantly explaining Usul Thalatha, the three principles, constantly explaining the dangers of shirk, constantly warning against shirk, and even saying, for example, that photographs can lead to shirk, and they mock them and they laugh at them. How can they call themselves Muslims if they are not scared of shirk? Even Ibrahim ﷺ was scared of shirk. Even Muhammad ﷺ was scared of shirk. Allah said, if you associate, if you do shirk, all your deeds will be lost. And he was addressing Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And he also said about other prophets, if they do shirk, everything they did will be annulled, will be cancelled. So we must, maybe someone is worshipping Allah 50, 60, 70 years of his life, and then suddenly he commits shirk and everything will be wiped away. Isn't it worth being afraid of this? And when Allah says He doesn't forgive shirk, shouldn't a Muslim be scared? So therefore, dear brothers and sisters, we must try and learn Tawheed all our lives, because we forget, we are humans. Sometimes we learn something, we forget. Therefore, we must repeat. Shaykh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, he taught Kitab al-Tawheed, you can even say hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. As soon as he finishes, he starts again. As soon as he finishes, he starts again. Never stop. So do not listen to people who dislike Tawheed and people of Tawheed and dislike the Sunnah and people of the Sunnah. Do not listen to them, because these are people either who are ignorant or they are pawns in the hands of shaitan, in the hands of the enemies of Islam. So do not listen to them. You must save yourself, you must save your family. In the grave, no one will go in the grave with you, even your closest friend. You must save yourself. You must be able to live your life here in this world so that you are able in the grave to say who your Lord is and who your Prophet is and what your religion is. These are the three questions. So therefore I call myself and you to follow Tawheed, to follow the Sunnah, and may Allah make us live on the Tawheed and Sunnah, and make us die upon Tawheed and Sunnah, and raise us among with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the followers of Tawheed and Sunnah and his Sahaba and his companions and the scholars and the pious. وجزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله وسلم على محمد والحمد لله رب العالمين.